They didn't even look at me when I walked in. My stepmother, Gloria, sat at the center of the long walnut table, like a queen at court, her pearl earrings catching just enough light to dazzle. She was smiling, too wide, too proud. Beside her, my half-brother Mason lounged back in his chair, hands laced behind his head, a smirk playing on his lips like he had already won something. Maybe he thought he had. I hadn't even sat down before she spoke. "He loved me," Gloria said, her voice silky and sharp. "Not the child of his first mistake." She didn't even blink. Mason chuckled under his breath. "She's not even in the paperwork," he added with a grin that made my stomach turn. The room broke into soft, restrained laughter, polite, practiced, the kind that pretended not to be cruel. I stood there, coat still on, purse clutched tight in my hand, feeling like an outsider, trespassing in someone else's home. But it had been my home once, too, in another life. I crossed the room and took the only empty seat, far from everyone else, the seat nobody wanted. My pulse thudded against my ears as I scanned the faces. Lawyers in stiff suits, a few distant cousins, family friends who hadn't spoken to me since my mom died. Everyone looked relaxed, at ease, like they already knew how this would end. I forced my face into something resembling composure, even though my hands trembled in my lap. Gloria's gloating didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was how confident she looked, like she had already seen the future and signed her name at the bottom. The lawyer, Mr. Granger, entered a few moments later. He looked older than I remembered, or maybe just more tired. He carried a dark leather briefcase, the kind that clicks open with a sound like a gun being cocked. All eyes turned to him. Silence dropped like a curtain. "Thank you all for coming," he said, setting the briefcase on the table. "As you know, we are here to read the last will and testament of Mr. Gerald Langston, my father, or the man who used to be. It had been years since we last spoke. Years since I stormed out after he said he couldn't afford to hold on to the past anymore. The past being me, a reminder of his first life with my mother. Gloria, his second wife, younger, perfectly poised, made sure everyone knew she was the one who helped him rebuild. She inserted herself into every photo, every story, every memory, until it felt like I had never existed at all. And Mason, her son, half my blood, none of my heart, followed her lead like it was natural. I had always been the other daughter, the shadow in the background. "Before I begin," Mr. Granger said, opening the briefcase, "I'd like to remind everyone that the contents of this reading are final and legally binding." Gloria leaned forward, lips pursed in anticipation. Mason nudged her, grinning, like it was a game they were about to win. Then Mr. Granger hesitated, just for a second. A flicker crossed his face. Confusion, maybe even surprise. He reached into the case and pulled out a sealed envelope. Thick, recent, stamped unmistakably. "Actually, he said, adjusting his glasses, your father made an amendment to the will 3 weeks ago, after discovering the truth." The room stiffened. Gloria's smile froze. Masane's brow furrowed. "What amendment?" Gloria snapped, her voice slicing the air. "That's not possible. Gerald was—" He was barely lucid at the end. Granger didn't flinch. He didn't rise to her tone. He simply opened the envelope and removed a fresh stack of papers, each one signed in my father's unmistakable hand. "It's all here," he said, steady and calm. Signed, witnessed, and legally executed. No one moved. No one breathed. I sat frozen, at the end of the table, watching the color drain from Gloria's face. What truth? I had come here expecting nothing. I'd been told there was nothing left for me. Maybe that was true. But the way Mr. Granger kept glancing at me, not at Gloria, said otherwise. The silence in the room wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, electric, the kind that fills the air before a storm. I could hear every heartbeat, every shallow breath. I sat on the edge of my seat, waiting as Mr. Granger unfolded the amended will. Gloria's perfectly manicured nails tapped against the polished wood. Tap, tap, tap. She wasn't smiling anymore. "This is absurd," she muttered, but her voice lacked conviction. "Gerald wouldn't. He was too sick. He couldn't have, but he had." It was written all over Mr. Granger's face, in the tremble of his hand, in the way he read and reread lines he already knew by heart. Whatever my father had discovered, whatever he had changed, it was enough to shake the foundation of everything Gloria thought she had secured. "As I mentioned," Granger said carefully, "this amendment was signed 3 weeks ago in the presence of 2 witnesses and myself. Your father was of sound mind. He was deliberate and very specific." Mason scoffed, leaning forward, his smirk flickering into something uncertain. "Specific, or," he echoed, his voice quieter now. And suddenly, for the first time since I walked into the room, I wasn't the one trembling. Whoa, that was intense. "You've written, or shared, something really powerful here. It reads like a full dramatic chapter out of a thriller novel. Layered betrayal, family secrets, inheritance, battles, emotional confessions. It's electric. The last sentence you wrote, that's when I rewrite and feels like it is almost the start of the next chapter, but trails off slightly. It feels like you're right on the edge of a major turning point for Samantha. Is she about to rewrite the story Gloria tried to tell about her? Rewrite her own future? Confront the past on her terms? Would you like me to help you finish that thought? Like continue with a few lines of what happens next? Or were you imagining it in a certain direction already?" She hadn't come to fight. She came because she was afraid, not of me, but of the truth. She turned toward the door. "You'll regret this," she said. "All of it." "I already regret a lot," I said quietly. "But not this." The door slammed, and the house fell silent once more. The next day, I drove to the family home, the one I now legally owned. I hadn't set foot there since I was 21. The last time I'd stood on that porch, my father had told me I was making a mistake, that I'd never find anything better than blood. He was wrong. The house looked exactly the same. White shutters, stone path, the heavy wooden door that had once stayed closed while I cried outside with a duffel bag at my feet. I stepped inside, slowly. It was too clean, eerily so, like no one had lived there for months, only existed. Dust lingered in the corners. A photo of Gloria and Mason still hung above the fireplace. Not a single picture of me anywhere. I walked the halls like a stranger wandering through someone else's memories. Then I saw it, on my father-in-law's desk beneath his favorite antique lamp. A notebook, worn leather cover, no label, no lock. I opened. It page after page of his handwriting. Dates, observations, regrets. Saw Samantha's graduation photo in the paper. She looked so grown up. I wonder if she ever got my letter from 2014. Gloria says she wants nothing to do with me. Hard to believe. Maybe she's right. Maybe I ruined it beyond repair. Tried to write her again, couldn't find the words. Each entry was a stone laid on my chest. He had thought of me. He had missed me. Maybe he hadn't said it to my face. Maybe he hadn't fought hard enough. But for a girl who spent most of her 20s believing she'd been erased, it meant everything. I knew, then, Gloria wasn't finished. She would come back. She would fight. But this time, I wasn't the girl sobbing on the porch. I was the one holding the keys. 3 days after she stormed out, the envelope arrived. Heavy, official, her lawyer's name printed in sharp black letters across the front. Notice of intent to contest the will, of course. The signatures, the notarization, the letters, the video testimony my father left. It didn't matter. Gloria wouldn't go quietly. Control was her currency, and I'd taken it from her. I sat on the edge of the couch, the envelope open in my lap, coffee cooling at my side. I wasn't afraid, not anymore, but I was tired. Tired of the past, the lies, the moldy memories clinging to the walls of that house, tired of being the girl they tried to forget. That night, I returned to the house. Not because I had to, because I couldn't sleep without. Being near the pieces he left behind, his scent still lingered. Old books, cedar wood, ink. I went straight to the study. The notebook still lay where I'd left it. I hadn't finished it before. Something inside me had been too scared. But now, with Gloria building her case, I needed to know everything. I opened to the middle and stopped. The handwriting was different. Shakier. Uneven. August 3rd. Talked to Margaret again. Lab confirmed it. Timeline doesn't lie. I was wrong about everything. About who Samantha really is. My heart stuttered. Lab. Timeline. I flipped ahead. August 7th. Didn't want to believe it, but Margaret. Wouldn't lie. Paternity results sealed in the filing cabinet. If she's right, if what we think is true, then Mason isn't... The sentence was scribbled out so hard the ink tore through the page. I stood up, needing air. Paced the room. The filing cabinet. The bottom drawer that always stuck. It took all my strength to wrench it open. Inside, a thin manila envelope, unmarked except for one word. Confidential. My hands trembled as I opened it. Two things inside. First, a lab report. DNA analysis. 2 samples, ML and GL. Conclusion: no biological relationship found. Mason wasn't my father's son. He never had been. The room tilted. Every memory of Gloria parading Mason as the perfect heir, every time my father brushed me aside, it all snapped into brutal, devastating focus. He hadn't known, not until the very end, and when he did, he changed everything. The second item, a sealed letter. No address. Just a single line. For Mason. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Just holding it made something in my chest shift, an ache so old I barely recognized it. This wasn't just about regrets. This was about truth, the kind that doesn't explode, but burns everything quietly to ash. The next day, I met with Mr. Granger. I handed him the DNA results and the sealed letter. His eyebrows rose slightly. He read the report carefully, then leaned back. This changes the landscape. Can she still contest it? I asked. He hesitated. She'll try. But if this information becomes part of the record, her claim collapses. No bloodline, no standing. The silence stretched between us. It's up to you whether it becomes public, he added. Your father didn't include it in the formal documents, only the notebook. Maybe he hoped it wouldn't come to this. Maybe, I said softly, but Gloria's made it clear she won't stop. He nodded. Then I'd advise we file it under sealed evidence, released only if the case proceeds. I agreed, but inside I was torn. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to humiliate Mason, or even Gloria. I just wanted to be free, free of them, free of their poison, free of the years they stole. They would have lost in court. Not because I wanted them to, but because the truth always wins. Eventually, even if it takes years to find its voice. The court date never came, not because Gloria backed down willingly, but because her lawyer did. 2 weeks after I handed Mr. Granger the DNA results and my father's sealed letter, her attorney asked for a meeting. Granger told me that once he reviewed the documents, the signatures, the dates, the matching entries in my father's notebook, he advised Gloria to let it go. But Gloria didn't. She sent one last letter, handwritten. No apology, no remorse. Just a single line. You stole everything, but don't think for a second you earned it. I didn't reply. I didn't need to prove anything to her. Not anymore. The house still didn't feel like mine. It whispered with the ghosts of another life. His voice, her perfume, Mason's laughter echoing down the halls. But slowly I began to change it. I took down the pictures over the fireplace, packed up old trophies, framed articles, anything that felt like a shrine to someone else's story. In their place, I added pieces of my own. A photo of Mom and me at the lake, a bookshelf filled with my dog-eared favorite novels, a painting I made in college, the one Dad once called too abstract to be art. I hung it in the entryway. Think he would have smiled if he saw it now. Weeks passed. A month. Just when I started to believe this chapter was finally over, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Samantha. The voice was soft, slightly raspy. Familiar? Yes. This is Margaret, your father's former secretary. My heart stuttered. He asked me not to contact you directly, she said. He wanted to leave space, but after reading what you found, I think you deserve to know everything. Louis. Next morning, I drove out to meet her. She lived in a small brick house on the edge of town, surrounded by roses and silence. She welcomed me inside with a cup of tea and handed me a small cloth-bound folder. Inside, copies of emails, financial reports, calendar appointments, things she had quietly collected over the years. I kept these because I saw what was happening, or she said. But your father wouldn't hear it. Not then. As I flipped through the pages, the pattern became clear. Gloria had been siphoning money, moving assets, rerouting income into private accounts under Mason's name. She hadn't just manipulated emotions. She had almost destroyed him financially. He only began to suspect last year, Margaret said, whereas when a property he thought he owned turned up under someone else's trust. He came to me in a panic. That's when I told him everything. And the DNA test. He asked me to help arrange it. He didn't want to confront Gloria until he was sure. What did he do when he found out? I asked. She shook her head. He didn't cry, but he looked like a man who'd been holding his breath for 20 years. And finally exhaled. After I left Margaret's house, I didn't drive straight home. Instead, I went to the cemetery. It was raining, soft, steady, the kind of rain that doesn't chase you indoors but invites you to stay. I stood by his headstone, brushing my fingers over the carved letters, Gerald Langston, beloved husband, devoted father. I used to think that second line was a lie. Now I think it was just incomplete. I got your letter, I whispered, and I believe you. I knelt down and pulled a folded note from my coat. My own words this time, just a few. You were wrong, but you tried to make it right. And that matters. We can't rewrite the past. But I'm learning how to live with the truth. Thank you for seeing me. Love. Samantha. I tucked the note at the base of the stone, weighed down with a small rock, and let the rain wash the rest away. A few days later, another letter came. This one wasn't from Gloria. It was from Mason. I don't know what to say, it began. I didn't know about any of it. I believed her. I believed everything she told me about you. Maybe that makes me weak. Maybe it makes me guilty. I don't expect forgiveness. But if you ever want to talk, I'm here. I didn't write back. Not yet. Because I didn't know what I wanted to say. But I folded his letter carefully and placed it in the same drawer where I kept my father's journal. Maybe one day I'll answer. Maybe not. What I do know is this. I am not the child of a mistake. I am the daughter of a man who, at the very end, chose truth over pride. And I have survived more than anyone ever gave me credit for. if you've ever been erased, overlooked, or made to feel like your truth. Didn't matter. Hear me when I say this. You are not invisible, and even if it takes years, the truth will always find its way to the light.